Hello and welcome. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator and this is the Phoenix Airbus A319 today. So, someone in the comments asked me, could you do a full guide of how to set up the aircraft? Well, we've done an MCDU guide which was quite detailed, I believe. And well, the idea for these videos, for this whole video series, for me was to give you a bit of a better understanding what it is you're actually doing. There are lots of videos out there that tell you press this button, press that button, and that's fine. And if that's all you want, then that's absolutely perfectly fine. But I thought I just want you to understand not just what to do, but why you do it and what each and every button actually does. So if we take that approach and we go through an entire flight, that would be a whole series in by itself. But what I thought I can do, let's just go through the startup procedure. So from approaching the aircraft to powering the aircraft up, so until everything is running. I'll show you exactly what to do and why to do, and if things are not the way they should be, how to approach that. And then we finish the video there, and then we'll see how you guys like it. If it's too much, then we'll just leave it at that. If you're happy, then maybe leave a like or leave a comment, and who knows, maybe we can do more like that. But for the time being, let's just talk about how to power up the aircraft and all the things you need to be aware of when doing so. Okay, so we have just gotten off the crew bus and we're standing in front of the aircraft. The first thing you want to do is look at the chocks. Is the aircraft on chocks? This is very important because it will tell you whether or not you can actually release the parking brake. So in this case we can see there are chocks, so chocks in place. Next you have a quick look at the back to see if the APU is obstructed in any shape or form. So it's all good today, no vehicles, nothing behind it, because we will have to start it later on. And we want to make sure that there is no problem when we do so. And the final check we do, and I think this is very company specific, is to make sure this flap is open. This is the outlet valve. So essentially what we're looking at here is where the air comes out of the cabin. So you need to imagine it this way. The engines, when we're in flight, pumping a lot of air into the cabin to increase the pressure. And how high the pressure is inside the cabin is actually just regulated with this flap. So if it's completely closed, then obviously inside the aircraft the pressure will rise. If it's completely open, the pressure will drop. On the ground it makes sense to be completely open so that the pressure inside is the same as outside. And this is precisely why you should check that this is open and not closed. Especially if you have an external air conditioning unit connected, because that basically takes over the job of the engines. It will pump in cold air into the cabin. If maintenance for whatever reason had to close this, there are some checks they do where they actually close the valve, then air is being pumped in, this is closed, the pressure inside is going to be higher than on the outside. And if you try to open the door, this could be dangerous because it could slam the door straight into your body and face and injure you. So, at my company at least, if we see that external air is connected to the aircraft, we come back here, we make sure the outflow valve is open, and only then do we give the thumbs up to open the doors. Okay, here we are. One last glance on the outside of the aircraft, and that's across the wing. Now in the summer this is not necessary, but in the winter time most definitely you want to check if there's any icing on the wing, because if there is, you better tell them right now. De-icing trucks are usually very busy during the winter time. The sooner you tell them that you require them, the sooner you get into the queue. And so if you can tell them before you even enter the aircraft, that'd be very good and may minimize any delay. Okay, let's get into the cockpit. Okay, welcome to the cockpit. As you can see, it's all powered down. There's a GPU connected, we saw that on the outside, and you can also see this by this light here, external power available. But apart from that, everything is offline. So we now want to power up the aircraft, but before we do so, there are certain things we need to check, because once you power up the aircraft, anything that is switched on right now would immediately activate. The first thing we check is this area here. Makes perfect sense. We don't want to power up the aircraft if the engines are not in a off position. Thrust levers need to be idle. The engine master levers need to be in the off position, and of course the mode selector needs to be in the norm, or basically off position. So that makes perfect sense because we're about to power up the aircraft. Next up is the weather radar, and this might be more important than you think. So the check itself is fairly easy. Just make sure that everything is in the off position, and that's it. But why is this so important? Well, you probably know the weather radar is located in the nose of the aircraft, and it's, just to keep it very simple, it's sending out a strong signal that gets reflected by water droplets, and that reflection is collected back, and with that it can tell you on your screen up here if there is a lot of water ahead of you, and therefore maybe a chance of thunderstorms, turbulence, etc., etc. Bit more complicated than that, but let's just leave it at that. Now that beam is actually quite strong, so you don't want to have this on anywhere near an apron. The weather radar should not be switched on when there are any people around you. We switch it on the taxiway, on the way to the runway, because the beam is not very healthy. I'm not sure what kind of studies there have been done. All I've ever been told since I've been flying, this is no good. If you stand in front of an aircraft and the weather radar is on, it's really not healthy for you. But that's not the only reason. The other reason is that if you would be parked in front of a terminal building or even a hangar, basically a flat surface that's very close to the aircraft, the beam would go out, would be immediately reflected, and all that beam would come straight back into the receiver, and this could be so strong that it can actually damage the weather radar. This is an information we got from the manufacturer of the weather radar, and these things are very expensive. So don't put the power on the aircraft if this is not off, because first of all you endanger people on the ground, and secondly you could actually damage the radar, especially if you're parked near a nice shiny glass terminal, and that could be very expensive, and you may be asked by your boss why you didn't follow the checklist. Landing gear lever. Well, this makes sense. We don't want it to be in the up position and then fire up the aircraft and the gear retracts, so that would be rather unhealthy. So to me, yeah, that's very obvious. Next, we check the wipers. Again, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If for whatever reason the previous crew forgot to switch them off and left them in any of the other positions, if you start up the aircraft, they immediately start moving about. It might be actually a hot day. The thunderstorm that they encountered has long passed. You don't want hot, dry rubber scraping against an expensive windshield. That's no good. So wipers need to be off. That's another check you need to do. And this brings us to the last check you have to do before you fire up the aircraft, and this is the battery check. And this is a bit more involved than you might think. So you've probably heard that you need to check those two numbers here, and they need to be at or above 25.5 volts. So what is it you're checking here? Well, basically you are checking how much charge the batteries have. So why is this important? Okay, I need to take you on a little journey here. Stay with me. During normal operations, the engines provide the power to the aircraft. When we switch off the engines, then we usually revert to the APU, and if the APU isn't running, then we have ground power. We have it here. So basically an external power source that runs the aircraft. And all these things charge the batteries. Why are the batteries so important? Well, they are our last line of defense. So imagine really bad scenario. It is nighttime, something goes wrong. You land, you skid off the runway, the engines get ripped off, the aircraft comes to a halt in a field, and it is pitch black dark. So the only power source you will have are the batteries. They will come on automatically, and they will only provide power to the most essential things. So things like emergency lighting, emergency exit signs, one of the dome lights here in the cockpit, just to help you to get off the aircraft as quickly as you can. So these are vital. They need to be charged. How long they're gonna last depends on the batteries. There are different ones. Mostly you're gonna be told it's about 15 minutes or so, some longer. But anyway, the minimum voltage you want to see is 25.5. Anything below that will not give you enough time to evacuate the aircraft or provide enough power in case of emergency. So in this case, it's all good. So the procedure would be batteries on and external power on. So we can do that. And that's it. And we are powered up. Procedure completed. But what if those two are below 25.5? Well, there's a procedure you have to follow. You would still do what I've done now. You would connect to the external power, and then you would start a timer. Now, I haven't had this happen very often, maybe 4 or 5 times so far in my career, but I just use my mobile phone. I set a timer for 20 minutes. Okay, so you let the batteries charge for 20 minutes, and when the timer is up after 20 minutes, you essentially switch them off and make sure this doesn't drop below 25.5. If it does, you need to call maintenance. If it doesn't, you're good to go. That's basically it. Another thing with the batteries, it doesn't happen often, but it has happened to me. The GPU doesn't work. You are at a stand somewhere, and for whatever reason the external power source doesn't work. So the only choice you have is to switch on the batteries and then switch on the APU straight away. If the battery voltage is below 25.5, you're not allowed to switch on the APU straight from the batteries. That's a limitation given to us by Airbus. If that scenario happens, I've never had it happen, I have no idea. I guess you would have to ask the airport for an external power unit, because you cannot start the APU, but that's required to start the engines. So this is why we do all this, this is why we check all this, and this is why it's important that that number is correct. And then we can finally sit down, get our EFB out, put it here, check the technical status of the aircraft, and then get started with the rest of the flows up here, down here, and then end up with programming the MCDU. But I think we leave it here. I just wanted to give you a bit of an idea how it all works, why we do things the way we do, and give you a bit more background information. Right, like I said, this was a bit of an experiment. I have no idea how many of you are still watching, whether or not this is a bit too technical. But who knows, maybe some of you like it, maybe some of you found it interesting. If you did, maybe just leave a like or a comment, and then maybe we can do some more videos like this in the future. I'll leave it here for now. The aircraft is now ready to go, and well, I'm not gonna go anywhere. I have a day off today. I'm just gonna go out now. It's a beautiful sunny day, and enjoy my time off here at home. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, all the best. Bye bye.